Brad, can you just reflect on the past 9 games?
Yeah. Really good experience for me as far as seeing the other side of the bench and what all that job entails. I think it helps keep perspective down at the defenseman end. No, it was a great chance to work with guys from a different perspective, and it really is a very different perspective. It's probably about a 15-foot walk, but might as well be a mile and a half with how different they are, the jobs. But like I said, I was going to have fun with it. I had fun with it. As a staff, we tried to have fun with it. It's you see so many different perspectives of players. You start seeing forwards instead of defense. Defense were not an afterthought, but they're at the other end of the bench. I thought it was great for me, great to sort of go through the process of seeing what it was all about, even in an interim basis. But I had a real good time. I thought it helped me understand some of our players a little bit better too, especially on the forward side. Some still confuse me, but I figured a couple out. That's pretty good. But no, it was really good experience. I tried to take as many mental notes as possible, and I enjoyed it. I know the rest of the staff enjoyed it, and some of the different roles we had. So it was kind of sad to see it end.
You got to, when you were the assistant coach, and a couple of the guys have kind of alluded to this, that you were, for lack of a better way to describe it, almost kind of like the good cop to Torts. You were the guy they talked to and whatnot. When you then become the head coach, did you have to change your approach at all, or did it all just happen so fast that you more or less didn't?
Well, I didn't look for a bad cop, but to me, you have to be yourself. I asked my old junior coach when I started coaching. I think I told you guys, what's your best advice? And he said, be yourself. I think I have to be myself, like every other coach, and myself is, a little bit more of a communicator. I think I need to teach. I think I need to know the players well enough to be able to keep them accountable without it feeling like it's a personal attack. I think that really didn't change much. I think a lot of the concepts that I was teaching on the penalty kill and to the defensemen all basically pertain to 5-on-5 play as well. And so there wasn't really a lot of different messaging. I just think that I don't have 20 years of experience like Torts does, so I needed help. I needed input from the players. I needed input from the locker room. I needed input from the guys that were on the ice as to what was working and what wasn't, not only with the input from the staff as well. So I knew I needed that, and so I knew I needed those lines of communication, and so we tried to talk maybe a little bit more than what they were used to.
Right, with a 9-game sample size, not a lot of opportunities to practice, to kind of add to the challenge where you can maybe tweak some of the things that you otherwise would have.
Yeah, you kind of get airlifted in and everything's almost set, and structure-wise, and being a part of it makes it easy because, we were all in on that process of what we were going to do. So, with 9 games left and sort of the situation we're in, I'm not sure you are going to do a lot of tinkering anyway, but it would help maybe alleviate or fix some of the things that you felt might not have been going quite as well as they could have. But, you don't often get the schedule that you're looking for. It is what it is. You coach to that group that you're given and the environment that you're given, and you try and get them as good as you can.
Are you still have a lot of interest in the full-time job, and I guess what's your expectation of what will happen next?
Well, I have interest, sure. I don't know. I know I'm meeting with Danny at the start of next week at some point. Not sure which day exactly, but expect. I was told I'd be part of the process of the hiring of the full-time head coach, and so I would assume that at some point we'll talk about that.
Does that mean if ultimately Danny goes a different direction with the head coach, are you open to returning into what your previous role was under John?
I would be. I've got 3 years invested in this defense core, and a lot of the main players that feel like I have good relationships with, and I think that from that point of view, I think that continuity has a big value, and I've enjoyed my time here. I've enjoyed how I've been treated and how my family's been treated. It's been fantastic. So, I'd definitely consider that.
What was your experience like with the exit interviews?
Well, I didn't really have any planned. Told the guys to stop by if they wanted to chat, and so I think I met with 6 or 7 of them, and most of them were, they're kind of, I'm not sure what the situation is, but if everything stays status quo, here's a couple things I'd like us to think about, and and kind of got into with some of the individuals on maybe something that would, maybe one thing that would help them, or I asked them for one thing that would help me too, and I've been the type of coach that I feel like I have to keep learning. I feel like I have to stay relevant. So, I don't know how candid they are. Maybe you get a little sweeter version than what they really intend. But no, it was interesting. I think that I have pretty good relationships. Most of the guys I met with either were on the penalty kill, or were defensemen, or were part of the leadership group. So you're already talking a lot to them. So they're just kind of continuations of previous conversations. And from that point of view, I looked up and I had to kind of cut some of them off. You forget how long you can go. And my wife always gives me heck for my long answers. So that's probably another one right there.
Brad, I remember when you first got hired, you talked about you felt like you were going to learn from Sean Couturier just with how experienced he was. What has your relationship been like with him, and what have you learned from him?
Well, I've learned what a pro looks like and how they prepare and go about their day-to-day business. I've actually learned a lot in the last 9 games watching them. It is amazing. You kind of watch, but you're not really watching, when you're running the defense. All of a sudden, when you get put back there and you're behind the forwards, you're now sort of deciding the cadence of what lines go out in what order, and are any changes made, and as far as wingers, centers. So that assessment of how guys are playing is way more intense with the forwards, and so we had a good talk yesterday, and then we met. We talked again today. So I think that it's been impressive to watch him inch his way back to real close to where he was when he was in the Selke voting and all that. Obviously he's gone through a real tough surgery in between then. So I'm not sure how close he gets, but I've been really impressed with the drive he has to try and get back there and to provide that example for the rest of the young guys.
Brad, when you took over the interim job, we talked to you and you had said that one of your main priorities for the rest of the season was to just get the guys at the end of the year to make sure that things stayed light and just make sure people had good things to feel about going into the off season. If you were to be the next full-time head coach of the Flyers, would you necessarily have to be, for lack of a better word, sterner, or would you more or less take the same approach?
Well, I think relationships would change a little bit, but again, I think I have to stay true to who I am, and I don't think that there would be a level of accountability. Absolutely. I'd actually ask the guys, how do I hold you accountable? And I think the answer allows you then to hold them accountable with no beef on their part, because they've provided you with the MO, right? So, I think that you have to have that in your weaponry. I mean, your ice time is your best bullet, right? It's really sometimes the only one you have in the chamber, but the that's a really good room right now. You know, whoever comes in and is the head coach has the benefit of getting a room that understands what work ethic is, understands how to play together, understands a lot of the team-based things that were instilled. And I think as long as that leadership group stays intact, I think you get that a similar feel. I think the growth from within on some of our young players only helps that room because it increases the internal competition, which makes everybody better.
Torts would talk about that a lot, right? And I know you've mentioned a couple times about the room. And I think sometimes, fans might hear that and they don't really maybe quite understand the importance of it, or maybe the nuances that go into forming that sort of a bond. You've been around a long time. When you say that room is good, is it something that, do you believe, like what Torts believed, that has to be established first and foremost in order to build a foundation? And is that foundation now there that you feel like this organization can potentially grow and start to get better and maybe turn the corner and aim for a playoff spot next year?
Well, every person or every player I talked to, I said, we talked about expectations, and I said, our internal expectations have to be higher than this room, have to be higher than what the fans expect. And where that takes you, that's where you land. But I think that we have to demand a little bit more of one another as a group. And, that starts with the room, right? The room is, the messaging that comes from the leadership group and or the coaches is not that it's not ever questioned, but there's an idea that, hey, this is the concept we're going with, and let's all buy in. I think the buy-in from that group, from a competition, sacrifice, team-based work, you couldn't get much more of a good example from the Hathaways and the Cates and the Sealers, the guys that are the glue guys that are providing that example every shift. It really makes it hard for guys to stray off that path.
Your decor this year, with the exception of Emil Andre, guys who have at least a little bit of experience, some kids a lot of experience under their belt. You did have the one rookie, so I'm curious as to what your assessment was in terms of Emil's progression, what you saw from camp till April.
I think, we'd like that that progression to be a straight line. A lot of times there's a lot of squiggles in that line. Sometimes there's a little couple that go a little lower than you'd like. Sometimes the highs aren't maybe as high as you'd want. I haven't talked to him, but my message to him is I think that one of the great lessons in the game is you don't have to make the great play every shift. And I think he still gets caught in that at times. Instead of just making the play, I think he tries to make too much of a play. And I think it kind of sets the ball in motion the wrong way as far as negative momentum. And actually talked to a player today that said when that light bulb went off in his head, in that exact thing is when he started playing way better. It's you almost have to make the mistakes and recognize and go through that process of realizing the mistake and then, okay, how do I fix that? And I think that for him to play at his stature in this league, I think there has to be a more consistent game. He can't have the plays that end up being fairly good scoring chances against, and especially when some of them are fairly easily solved just with a little bit smarter or simpler play on his behalf. And that's part of the process. That's part of the process of every guy has to learn how he fits into this league. We just watched two young college guys, play one game and 5 games respectively, and realize that it is different. For Emil, it's different than Europe. It's different than the American League, and he is a competitive guy. You know, I will say that the one thing that we're not talking about right now with him is all the big hits that he's taken, because he's not taking them. And when you think about that growth, that's an incredible leap for a young man to not be in the crosshairs of so many big hits. And that's a testament to learning and figuring out, hey, I got to move the puck a little quicker. I can't put myself in those situations where the big brawny guy gets to run me through the boards and still have effect and still make the play. I would say that same growth has to show up when he has the puck, and maybe from our blue line to the top of their circle specifically, where I think he can really learn a smarter game that gives him a way better chance to have success in the NHL.
The York-Drysdale pairing, is that a pairing that you think can be very successful the more they play together?
I thought that a few games in they had a chance. I think that the last few games, I would say I kept waiting for them to sort of get some traction. And I would say that it didn't maybe materialize as much as I would have hoped, or maybe we had hoped. You know, two players that are really close friends, I thought would mesh a little bit better. And it didn't maybe come together as well as I thought it would have. Probably so much that I wouldn't look to play them very much together in the future, just where their games are. And that's Jamie's young. They're both young guys, right? When you take the old Sanheim, older guy Sanheim, the grizzled veteran, right? But he's got so many more years of experience, and a bigger guy, a more aggressive guy. You take Sealer away from Jamie, another veteran guy, an ultra decisive guy. I thought they lost the guy that triggered the decisiveness. I thought they got a little bit stagnant, and so that was interesting to see. I didn't anticipate that, and so from that point of view, they just spent too much time in their own zone because of the lack of that getting to the point of attack soon enough to sort of nullify more plays.
A couple players today said that they indicated that you're a thinking man's coach and that you think about strategy during the game. Do you feel that's one of your best attributes, that you kind of like to see the ice the whole way?
I don't know. I've been told I see the game a little bit differently than some other people. I don't feel like it's the only way I've ever seen the game, right? So, I don't know. I think I have a good ability to put myself in the player's shoes in certain situations, and maybe understand the mistake at times a little clearer, or maybe understand the why of the mistake. It doesn't take away the fact that the mistake was made, but I think that you can focus on the mistake itself, or you can focus on the process leading up to the mistake, and maybe that's what I deal with maybe more than some other coaches. I think that's where the correction and the teaching can have more effect, instead of at the actual point of when that you felt that mistake was made. Maybe that's what I do. I don't know. I in those meetings this morning, they were saying that same thing, and I'm like, well, I just have always seen the game from my eyes, and maybe that's how it gets. Maybe gets the correction across a little clearer, or maybe gets gets them to the point where they can solve it themselves. I mean, I really think that's the goal, is you provide the concepts you want them to work under, and don't paint the whole picture. I love rules. I think rules make you fast. They also make you predictable, and they can also limit how much you're learning on the ice. I think concepts allow guys to fill in the blanks, and I think it allows them to not necessarily play any slower or be less predictable, but also have an extra layer of learning where they're actually making some of that decision making based on, the concepts that are put forth.
I think,
One or two more?
Brad, a lot of people on the outside are trying to put a timeline on the team for when it might get to the next step. Now, year 3, how close or how far do you think maybe the team is to not winning a Stanley Cup, but taking that big next step?
I don't think we're that far. I talked to Sandy about that this morning or this afternoon, and he goes, yeah, at one point it feels like you're a long way off. We were three wins away from the next playoff team, and then you start going through the process of, you remember that game we blew, and you remember those 2 points we kind of felt like we gave away or could have done a better job with, and I don't think you're far away. I don't think any of the teams that missed the playoffs in the East are far away. The proximity and points, that's a St. Louis-like 10 or 12 game run, and all of a sudden you're there, right? And so we need to get better, in every aspect. Special teams have to get better, goaltending has to get better, our defense core has to get better, our forwards have to get better. Some of that's going to be from within, from growing, and some of it's got to be from the outside. How the upper management has that plan and how they piece all that together. That's up to them. I just know that I don't feel far away as the coach as you work with this group. I find that Kate's trio of him and Forster and Brink, that's something to get really excited about. Mishkov is something to get really excited about. The play of some of our guys, especially Sanheim and Konechny in the first half of the year leading up to the Four Nations, that's something to get excited about. Why or how they maybe fell off from that best game, that's something that has to get fixed. And that's, we've got a lot of things that need to get better. That's going to be whoever is tasked with leading this team, that's going to be a big part of their job, is how do you identify them and how do you get them closer to a better game? How do you get the guys that are in place? How do you get a guy like Cates to keep driving and keep improving? It's been exceptional. Can he get better at faceoffs? Can he be a top 10 faceoff guy? Then what's he like? Now you're talking about an exceptional hockey player. That's the exciting growth. I know he's a driven man. I know he's going to get better at faceoffs. I think a lot of our guys have a chip on their shoulder with how things have gone here, and hopefully we can take that and make the necessary improvements to take that next step. I mean, you get in, and it sounds silly. You might not feel like you have a legitimate chance. You have a chance, and I think for the guys that have been here a long time, I know Konechny wants to play playoff games again. I know Sanheim wants to play playoff games again. These are the guys that are going to drive it for us. We're going to need growth from our young guys, but it's really going to be those veteran guys that use the fact that we haven't been there for a while as a real motivator.
Okay, thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for your help this year, Brad.